talk about families working together. What are some practical things or anecdotes that you could tell us about families being involved together in ministry, particularly in the rebuilding kind of ministries that L'Abri is promoting?
Well, I would say that it all depends on what, where you are and what it is you are doing. But children can be certainly included in such things as preparing for people to be in our, read the tapestry, read of how our lives were spent in everybody doing. I would say that Susan, who's here right now, Debbie, Frankie as a little guy, Priscilla, well, go back to the ages they were. Priscilla was 17, Susan 13, Debbie 9, and Frankie 2.5 when L'Abri started. They each were very much a part of what was going on, not only in practical things such as helping me make cookies and tea and bring in wood for the fire and clean the toilets and clean the living room and punch down dough and make rolls for the hot dogs and chop up carrots and celery and onions for soup and so forth. My children really were helping in all the things that were being done. Jane Stewart Smith, the first weekend she came from Milano, was met at the door by Priscilla. You picture it being L'Abri. It wasn't L'Abri, it was just our house. I mean, it was just a mother and a father and 4 young people of the ages I've just mentioned. Priscilla home from the university for the weekend. I had been getting a few groceries. As I came back, Priscilla came to the door. Mother, that singer that sent a telegram saying she's coming is an opera singer from Milano. She's upstairs talking to Susan. All right, Susan was in bed with rheumatic fever, but Susan was excited about Jane Stewart Smith coming, an opera singer who was not a Christian, and someone that we were hoping would come to find truth. But Susan's attitude as a 13-year-old was very much not starting to quote Bible verses at Jane Stewart Smith, which would have totally put her off, but to talk to her about opera, to listen, to learn, to find out something. The children were helping us because of their sensitivity toward people being human beings. They weren't given. I mean, if you had asked our children if they were involved in a ministry, I'm afraid they wouldn't have known what you were talking about. We didn't use that kind of language. I mean, they were our children. These were people coming from the opera circles in Milano, in Jane Stewart Smith's case, from medical hospital in Basel, in the case of Mary and Ann's case. Mary is here. Mary with Ellis. I don't know if they're here in the room or not, but Ellis Potter and Mary Potter. Mary, back at that time, came with Ann as occupational therapists from Basel, beginning a course of study there. Now, they were Christians, but as they came, they were asking if it would be possible to bring other therapists and doctors and nurses and so forth down for a weekend. Our children were excited about the people. They cared about whether they would find truth or not because they believed truth was true. But their help to us was great because of their attitude toward people and their enjoyment of people as people. Frankie I remember when he was 7 years old, having the designer, one of the designers of the Boeing 707 sit on the foot of his bed. explaining away to this 7-year-old why it was that there, why are there so many accidents? What'd you do wrong with that? Explaining away, but an intense interest, in how he designed it, what he had done. All right, it's a family togetherness in welcoming people as people, and not in having a, how can I put it, a preaching sort of attitude or a preaching center, making people feel at home, going for a cup of tea and a cookie, but also I could trust my children not to be off-putting to people, not to be, I mean, I don't mean they were perfect by any manner of means. Frankie had a talent. I don't know who's here that came in those days. He has persuaded at the tender age of 6 or 7 or 8 girls of 16 or 18. Oh yes, there was a girl here who was 16 when Frankie was 6. I remember Patsy, from this part of the country, who was here just the other day. All right, Frankie could inveigle people to haul up a petit char, a little old wooden cart with 4 wheels, with a raft that he'd hammered together that he was sure was going to float on a little pond up by the cemetery. And I'll tell you, it was a long, hard walk pulling this raft up the winding mountain road. Now, what had that got to do with the ministry? It was a family being a family. I mean, and the same thing you'd find in Gresham if you went there today. Ranald, John, and Kirsty, and Jerem's children, the boys and so on, racing around there when they were little, as they are growing, being real, being children, climbing trees, swinging in swings, but caring about the people, racing around doing whatever they're doing and playing volleyball or whatever, hauling people in to help them with their things, being part of the scene of wider family, but caring about the people to the extent that, well, there was a funeral in Gresham recently. It was Bob. Bob died. Some of you who've been at Gresham knew Bob. Bob was the Gresham village drunkard, an alcoholic that was always in the pub. Bob was the black sheep of his family, and the village knew him, and people far around knew Bob. Nice old guy that used to tell long tales about his days in the Navy and so on in the pub. Along with, you know, is La Brie a place for intellectuals? Bob came to La Brie there in Gresham and began coming to the church services and began coming to discussions. And then finally, Bob stayed on. Bob became a Christian. Were the children a help? I'm sure the children were a help. The children grew to love Bob, and they were a help in many ways. And Bob dug gardens and planted gardens and shared his lettuce. And, you know, Bob was an answer to the children's prayers as well as to the rest of the people's prayers. They prayed for Bob as well as loving him and helping him pull weeds and be with him in the garden and so on. And when Bob died of a heart attack just a few months ago, was in this early spring, the children pulled daffodils out of the grass to put on Bob's grave. The children wept. The children wanted to hear more about heaven. What's Bob doing now? It was real to them, past the grave, if you know what I mean. There's a togetherness in the family that whatever it is you're involved in doing, if you're really together in it, it's not artificial. It's not that on Wednesday night we'll all be together and do a thing. It's the living together day by day, and if people are coming in, you share it. Now, I'm not saying you all have to have a La Brie, but you all have some people come for dinner. And some of the people should be brought in off the highways and byways, if I could put it that way. There isn't anybody that can't have somebody come in for a meal that doesn't say they have to live with you. They can come in for a meal. A barbecue in your garden, somebody that has a need of being talked to, some rascally 14-year-old that's in trouble, or some very old person that's lonely. It can be think about it. Go home and look around and see who ought to be invited in. That's a practical thing. And you say to the children, we're having this person. No, he's not an uncle or an aunt, and he's not a member of our church, and he's not somebody that we've got to pay back a debt to, who had us for dinner 2 months ago. He or she, we want to just see what we can do for them. They're new in this country. They've come over as a refugee, or here's a child that doesn't have any parents. Now, there are all those children in India live on the street, but there's some children in America that have never known a home. They've never known a mother and father. They've never seen anybody make bread. They've never seen rolls being rolled out into the shape of a snail, and then some caraway seeds put on top, or whatever kind of seeds. They've never had any gingerbread man to make. Nobody's ever made it with them. All right, you don't have to call it anything with a capital letter, a ministry or a worker and anything. You can just have your family share with you in try it once a month. Invite 1 or 2 people that are very unlikely people. Who's the most unlikely person that you think has never, ever been invited into a home that's a home? An awful lot of them in this country, and scattered through the country. And that would be a sharing that would cause the family to share together. If you're together, if you can be together on any one thing, that would be a thing you could be together on. A very practical kind of thing. Now, of course, if you're going to have a march, such as was in Atlanta on Saturday, there were a lot of children marching in that march with their parents. It was very beautiful. Teenagers as well as little children, babies in arms, marching in that march. There was togetherness there for all the world to see. I think that was something very beautiful for Atlanta to see. The enemy could make their sassy remarks, but they couldn't downplay too much the fact that there were families involved. The people were together in doing it. So I'd say it doesn't have to be under an ongoing thing that has a name. But I'm sure that as you go back, I'm praying that as you go back, you can begin. And anyone, anywhere, in a hospital, in an old folks' home, anywhere, has someone in the next bed, if that's where you are, someone in the next bed, someone down the hall, that has a need of something being shared, that isn't just reading a Bible verse at them, but sharing something that is on a human level of togetherness, and then speaking truth as it comes up in honest discussion.